Prepare to have your imagination stretched. What are the options for African Americans in the United States? Get comfortable. Welcome to another episode of 365 Brothers. Welcome to another episode of 365 Brothers. Today, we're speaking with a researcher and author. His next book is coming out this summer, The Black Exodus and the End of the Age. He is also an educator with over 20 years in the Long Beach Unified School District. It is my privilege to introduce you to Brother Iweze Ben Abudu. Welcome, Iweze.
All right, thank you. How you doing? Good morning.
Good morning.
Okay, peace and love to you and your guests. Thank you for having me on your show.
I am so delighted to share you with them. So tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Like you said, I've been an educator within the Long Beach School District for over 20 years. I'm married to my wife of 14 years. I have a book that's coming out this summer. I'm a Christian, but I also believe myself to be of the children of Israel, fulfilling biblical prophecy here in the United States of America. And I like to travel.
Do you have one or two favorite countries?
Yes. One of my favorite countries was Mexico, believe it or not.
Tell me more.
Yeah, Mexico. Well, you know, here in the United States, we get a lot of propaganda about Mexico. We get a lot of negative images, you know, shown to us. We are shown only immigrants crossing the border, refugees, you know, fleeing drug cartels and so on and so forth. And you don't really get a full picture of what Mexico is all about. You don't realize that there is a lot of ancient history that took place there. There's, you know, you have the Olmec history there in Mexico. You have the Mayan history there in Mexico. You have the Aztec history there in Mexico. You have some of the world's greatest pyramids there in Mexico. So we don't really get a lot of this information in the media, you know, here in the United States. But when I went there, I was blown away by how deep that experience actually was in terms of seeing a pyramid that has the same dimensions as the great pyramids in Giza in Egypt. At the base, the pyramid Teotihuacan, right on the outskirts of Mexico City.
You know, it's funny, Iweze, that you said that. I went to Mexico City in '93. I was doing a summer abroad there in law school at Universidad de Guanajuato. I actually made my way to that pyramid and went to the top. And then,
oh, you did?
Yeah, and then so I met Iweze as a teacher. We met at the high school I currently teach at some 20 years ago. It was right after I met you, actually, that I then went to the Middle East, and I went to the Pyramid of Giza. And I did not know that they were the same dimensions until you just said that.
They have the same dimensions at the base. The one in Giza is taller, but at the base, they have the exact same dimensions, which is just deep. You know, you don't when you think of Mexico based on, you know, like I said, what we are fed here in the United States through the media, you don't really know that those kind of things exist down there. You know, Chichen Itza in the Yucatan Peninsula, you know, and how it's aligned with the constellations and so forth.
Yeah, I remember hearing about how I think it's in the spring, the way the sun lines up, the shadows create the illusion of a snake moving.
Of a snake, right, it does, yes.
It's phenomenal. I love that you're dropping this knowledge right here. Thank you. Keep going.
Yeah, Yeah, so Mexico is one country. I would have to say Ethiopia is the other country that I fell in love with. I fell in love with the people. The people were so kind and generous, so loving. And going back to Ethiopia, depending on what region you go to, it's like going back in time. A couple thousand years. I went to a place called Lalibela, where they have rock churches hewn out of just churches hewn out of the stone, out of the rock, in the shape of crosses. So it's kind of like Africa's Holy Land, if you will. A lot of people can, call it Africa's Holy Land, or Africa's Jerusalem.
Yes.
So a lot of pilgrims go to this place. But it was like going back in time and, to the days of Jesus, something that you would see on a Bible movie, kids, and the kids just coming up to you, so excited to see you and wanting to show you their city and so on and so forth. It was in the food.
I just have to say, so I conduct this interview over Zoom, and I've mentioned that on a couple other episodes, but Iweze is just beaming as he describes the people of Ethiopia, and especially the way that the children come up. Like it's clear that your heart was deeply touched by that land.
Yeah, my heart was deeply touched, and I've always told myself that I want to do something special in particular for the children in Lalibela in particular, just the way that they touched me. I said, before I leave this earth, there's something that I need to do for the children of Lalibela. And so I'm dedicated to that task, and I'll try to get that done sometime in the near future. Just something that I could do to show my appreciation for the way that they treated me.
That's amazing. I'm curious. I know your wife is from Ethiopia. Is she from that town, that city?
She's actually from a place called Harar or Harar in East Ethiopia. It's an ancient city. It's actually the city that Muhammad fled to. Yeah, Muhammad fled to that particular city and was welcomed in Ethiopia by one of the ancient kings of Ethiopia. And so there's a tradition in Islam that they are not to harm Ethiopia because of how hospitable they were to the Prophet Muhammad. So she's from that ancient city, Harar in East Ethiopia.
When you talk to a researcher, you're going to learn something. That's cool. Let's get into this.
Okay.
What is your favorite song, either right now or of all time?
Can I have two favorite songs?
Everybody wants to have two. Everybody wants to share two. Yes, you can. You can.
Okay. Well, I would say one is "Begin the Day" by an artist known as Abigail. The group's name is Midnight. And have you ever heard of Midnight? They're a reggae band.
No.
Me personally, I think they were the next best thing since Bob Marley.
That's high
Bob
praise.
Marley and the Wailers. But for me, the song "Begin the Day" kind of puts me in the right state of mind, beginning my day on the right track. It's a reminder for me that I can leave my past mistakes or my mistakes in the past and start each day anew, and to build upon the things that I got right in the future. So the song kind of goes like this. It goes, begin your day by chasing all evil thoughts away. Begin your day by leaving bad decisions in yesterday. So, you can imagine listening to that early in the morning, how you can kind of get your day off to a good start. And then the second song.
By the way, I didn't know I should have added singer when I introduced you. That was good.
Well, you know, I try my best.
Yeah, that was good. That was good. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay. And then the second song is Exodus by Bob Marley.
Oh, yes.
Exodus by Bob Marley. You ever heard that song?
Oh, yes. I'm a big fan of Bob Marley. That unfortunately, that seems to be the extent of my real knowledge of reggae, but I know my Bob Marley.
Okay. So for me, that song is just, he tapped into something that for me is so relevant in terms of my spirituality. I believe it was just a prophetic utterance and very relevant for the times that we're living in. You know, give us another brother Moses. You know, we live in Babylon. We're going to our father's land. Exodus. And then, of course, the name of my book is The Black Exodus and the End of the Age. So you can see the connection there between that song and my life's work.
Yes, yes. Excellent. Thank you for that. So what is a favorite childhood memory?
I would say arriving in Jamaica for the first time at 7 years old. Because my mother, she got a teaching position there to teach English. At 7, she took me to Jamaica, and we arrived at night. And here I am walking in this strange place as a little kid. And by the way, she was newly married to my stepdad. So we were going to live with him. So here I am walking through this village at night, and no light except moonlight and starlight. And you could imagine the kind of thoughts me as a little kid that's going through my mind. I'm like, okay, I just left America and now I'm in this strange place that my mother is bringing me to. So I get there, and a little house, little wooden house, and a fruit bat flies on my shoulder. You know, it's a little tiny bat, and it's black but red under the wings. So I'm freaking out, and I just start crying. And so the experience didn't get off to a good start for me. You know, being in Jamaica, I cried myself to sleep that night. You know, of course, my stepdad's family and, you know, they try to console me, but I cry myself to sleep. So in the morning time, I wake up and some of the neighborhood kids are on the veranda talking. I hear their voices. And, you know, me being a little kid, you know, I naturally gravitate toward those kind of voices. You know, hey, there's some kids out here. I peek out the door in the window and I see them laughing. And I'm curious, what are they laughing about? And I see them looking at my shoes. And so I'm saying, okay, why are they looking at my shoes and laughing and stuff? So I approach my shoes cautiously, and I pick up the shoes because I'm thinking they must have put something in my shoe. So I pick it up, and I tilt my shoe, and out comes a little lizard. And this right here was a moment that I'll never forget because I made some friends based on that experience. You would think that experience would kind of turn me against them, but instead it cheered me up. You know, this little lizard coming out my shoe, it cheered me up, and immediately I had some new friends in Jamaica. So that's one
amazing.
of my favorite experiences.
You know, it's funny because kids, you know, it's all about play. Kids don't have all the learned biases, judgments, concerns, fears. And so when kids get together, you know, it just takes one doing something playful and the rest follow. And that's what I hear in that story. Right. Look, you're still giggling. In terms of accomplishments, clearly you've got, you know, many that you could share with us. I'm going to ask you to share two. The first one is an accomplishment that means the most to you personally. And then the second one is one that seems to impress the world.
For me, I would have to say going to Africa for the first time and Ethiopia and finding myself at the source of the Nile River. For me, that was an accomplishment that I couldn't dream about accomplishing, but to find myself actually there, it kind of just blew me away.
Do you remember what you were thinking?
Well, I was thinking, okay, how many people get a chance to experience what I'm experiencing right now? Being at the source of the Nile River in Ethiopia. I mean, you read about the Nile in history books. It's the thing of documentaries. You kind of experience that vicariously through other travelers. To find myself there at the source of the Nile River, I wanted to be in Africa when I turned 30. So I was 29 and I actually turned 30 in Africa. And coming from my background, none of the friends that, I was around traveled to places like that. None of their parents that I've known had any experiences like that. There was just a lot of temptations growing up here in the United States. And so for me to overcome some of those temptations and to find myself on the motherland, on the continent of Africa, for me, that was an experience that was deeply rewarding for me.
Mm. And what about the accomplishment that tends to impress others?
Probably the being an author, writing my book. Anybody can travel to a faraway place, but not anybody can sit down and write a book. Not everybody has the patience to do so. It requires a lot of patience and time and thought and so on and so forth. My book is a little over 100 pages. So for me, that's an accomplishment that I think would probably most impress others. When they hear, oh wow, you're an author, you wrote a book. That's probably like the next best thing to having an album out.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. As an author, I know words are meaningful for you. That goes without saying. That's true for every author. For yourself, what is a favorite quote, saying, metaphor, or book?
My favorite quote would have to be from Malcolm X. He spoke on history. He said, of all our studies, history is best prepared to reward our research. And whenever you have problems, all you have to do is study the historical methods used by people all over the world who have had problems similar to yours. And once you see how they got theirs straight, then you know how you can get yours straight. So for me, that's one of my all-time favorite quotes. My favorite book. Did you talk about book?
Well, you like to take two when I ask for one, so go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah, what's your favorite book?
And my favorite book is the Bible.
Say more.
All you have to do is just look out into the world and see what type of influence it has had on humanity, whether something positive or negative. For me, it has some of the most profound sayings that have ever been written. The opening pages, in the beginning, God created heaven and earth. It has the 10 Commandments, the sayings of Jesus, love your enemy, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. The Psalm of David, the 23rd Psalm. Yeah. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. I shall fear no evil. Though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. It's been the inspiration behind so many great movements, so many great liberation movements. Martin Luther King was a minister of the gospel. And look at the impact that he has had on the world, but in particular on us here in the United States. So for me, it's, it's an all-time favorite book, and it should be, as for me, as a Christian. As a Christian, one would hope that my favorite book is the very religious text that I ascribe to.
I got that. Clear. Thank you. No, that's clear. Thank you. Is there a person, moment, conversation that stands out for you as either changing the trajectory of your life or having a profound influence on your life?
I would have to say my born again experience was the experience that changed the trajectory of my life. I guess you can say I wasn't on the most ideal path prior to that born again experience. There's a lot of temptations in the world. It's easy to get caught up into something that you should not be caught up in. But I had a born again experience. I was tired of living the way that I had been living. I was about 19 or 20 years old.
And what happened?
I had a dream. Had a dream of the end of the world. It was an apocalyptic dream. I saw nuclear war. I saw heavenly images in it. I saw white Pegasus horses and Roman soldiers riding on these white Pegasus horses. So it had elements like that in it. War, famine, I saw. And so as I'm being shown all these things in the dream, I died. I died in the dream. And then I came back to life. And when I came back to life, I found myself in Africa. I was walking in slow motion through a sea of young kids with their hands outstretched, reaching up to me as I'm walking through them in slow motion. And I'm aware, I have like a sense of awareness in the dream, like, okay, where am I? What is this place? What's going on here? And I'm trying to understand the experience in the dream itself. I see an ancient temple in a valley, but right before the dream ended, I saw a group of white birds fly by in the dream. So I looked up and took note, and then the dream ended. When I woke up, I went outside, and the first thing that I saw was those same white birds that I had seen in the dream. So I knew, okay, a message is being sent to me, and that kind of like shook me to the core. You know what I mean? After that experience, I could never go back to being the same that I was prior to that experience.
That's incredible.
Yeah. That started my quest for truth. I needed to understand, what does this experience mean? One of the first things I did was I opened up a Bible. I said, okay, well, maybe I'll find some information here.
How did you go from, the dream, seeing the birds, and then knowing to go to look in the Bible?
I don't know. It was just something that drew me to the Bible. And I opened up the book of Revelation. And in reading the book of Revelation, I saw or was reading about some of the same symbolism that I had just experienced in the dream. And that kind of reinforced my interest in the Bible. But my dad was a Muslim. Not too long after picking the Bible up, I said, okay, well, let me start reading the Quran and see what's in there. And so as I'm like juggling these two books, I'm asking myself, okay, well, which one of these came first? Because I want to read both religious texts, but I want to read the one that came first. So in discovering that that the Bible was older, I decided to start with that. And once I really dug deep into reading it, I never left it. For me, I had found the truth.
That's pretty awesome. What moment or event highlights or signifies your experience as a Black man in America?
I would go back to 1991. I was probably 15, 16 years old. And I heard about the beating of Rodney King. You know, and we had been hearing, you know, growing up, I had been hearing about, you know, police brutality is something that you just, you know, you've heard. But for me, the beating of Rodney King being aired on television, you know, it kind of just polarized the issue. It brought it to the forefront. This is a real thing that I, as a young Black male growing up in America, that these are some of the issues that I have to face and to confront. And then, you know, when I saw the officers who beat him get acquitted, and then watch LA go up in flames, and where I was living here in Long Beach too went up in flames, and all the other surrounding cities went up in flames.
I remember that.
Right. So that for me, it all of a sudden, it was no longer the things of history, you know, reading about the Black Panthers' resistance against police brutality. Police brutality has been with us ever since slavery. You know, when they first came and got us from Africa, that was police brutality. When they wouldn't let us get off the ships, that was police brutality, Jim Crow. But so now, you know, here I was having to deal with it head on. And of course, you know, fast forward several years later, and these are some of the issues that we are still dealing with today, with the killing of George Floyd, Rayshard Brooks, and you know, and the brother that was shot down, who was just jogging in Georgia,
Ahmaud Arbery.
You know, Ahmaud Arbery. So I would say that 1991, because, you know, I had been traveling back and forth from the United States and Jamaica, you know, as one who is now settled for good, no longer traveling back and forth between the United States and the Caribbean, but is living permanently now in the United States. That these are some of the things that I would have to navigate around, and that if it's not going to be an easy road.
Yeah. Have you personally had any interactions with law enforcement that stand out?
Well, I've gotten tickets. you know, I've gotten speeding tickets. but no. On a more serious note, but still perhaps a little funny, I remember I was about 18 years old. Right, I was riding my bike on the wrong side of the street, going against traffic, and on one. And I don't know if you're familiar with the area, but I was going down Cherry in between Carson Avenue and Delamo. And on one side of the street, there's a cemetery.
Yes.
And on the other side of the street, there's a park.
Yes.
So naturally, as a kid, I'm gonna ride my bike on the side
with the park.
You know, with the park, not by the cemetery. Nobody wants to do that. So, you know, I'm riding, going against traffic, and the police stops me, a motorcycle police. He stops me and says, "Hey, you know, did you know that you're riding on the wrong side of the street? And, you know, what's your name? And, you know, where do you live? And so on and so forth." And he gives me a ticket. And I'm like, "Oh, man, what is this about? You're giving me a ticket? Don't you see that cemetery on that side of the street?" So for me, I felt that was just so unfair, because, and even to this day, when I see people riding their bike on the wrong side of the street in front of a patrol car or police officers, and they're not getting stopped, I can't help to think that, you know, I was just picked on that day, you know, for whatever reason. I don't want to accuse him of being,
yes,
racist or anything, but he could have he could have gave me a warning and said, hey,
right.
young man, these are the there is actually a law, and let me educate it. And, going forward in the future, make sure you ride your bike on the right side of the street. This is a dangerous area. But rather than doing that, he just writes me a ticket.
Now, did you know that when you whirled on the opposite side of the street? Did you know that that was against the law?
I didn't know. I didn't know that it was against the law. And, and I know that, there's a whole bunch of laws that we're not aware of, and that they could put it out their back pocket if they really want to stop you, and that there's a whole bunch of laws that they just completely ignore because you're not posing a threat or a danger to society. More important things that they could be doing, chasing after dangerous criminals than to be giving a young kid, riding by the park, a little ticket,
Yeah.
But,
yeah. That's why I asked you if you knew, because I know there, some nowadays there are more people riding bikes and they have all this. So nowadays we can kind of take for granted that, some people will know that. But even today, there are people who don't know some of these little minor infractions that become the reason that people are upset about over policing, which is a euphemism for harassment.
Exactly.
Yeah. Anyway, Thank you for sharing that. If America was a woman, whether friend, neighbor, lover, whatever, what would you say to her?
Okay. Well, I would say that after 400 long years of trying to make this thing work, this relationship work, and trying to live in peace and harmony with each other, to no avail, it's probably best for us to now go our separate ways. And I would ask her for a divorce.
I know you don't say that lightly.
My dad, he left the United States altogether when he was about 35 years old. He moved to the Caribbean. He was fed up with the social injustices. He decided, why did he need to stay here and suffer through the oppression when he could go to another Black country and live out the full manifestation of his life, as a Black person, without being treated unfairly, without being under the white power structure here in the United States. And so I think I kind of take after my dad in many ways, in traveling back and forth to Africa and seeing the possibilities that are there for Black people. Ghana is a country that is asking for Black people to come back home, and to build. And so I kind of think that, as long as we remain here in the United States under this framework, there's always going to be some type of injustices committed against Black people. We are not the majority here in this country. The attitude that we see being displayed by the President of the United States, by the Republican Party, by the power structure, by many in society who just don't respect us as human beings and individuals. I don't really see America becoming, this rainbow society accepting of all of its citizens, irrespective of race and color. I kind of feel like if we continue to stay here, there's going to be another police shooting of a Black man or Black woman. There's going to be some other incident that we have to get out and protest against. And how long are we willing to endure this type of treatment? So you can either stay or you can leave. I don't see us ever getting into a position of us being in control of the United States in terms of taking state power. And so I think that we need to do what the 13 colonies did when they wrote the Declaration of Independence. And they said, you know, whenever a people feel that it's their, you know, it's their time to take up their station and join the ranks of the other free peoples of the earth, then they should make a declaration as to why they're doing it and join the other free peoples of the earth. But here we are. We are subservient to the will of others, and we don't determine our own destiny as a people. We don't determine economic policy. We don't determine foreign policy. We don't determine overall social. Now, of course, we do have some influence, but influence is different than having power. You know, there's a big difference. I heard somebody say, and I don't know if it was an interview that I was watching or something on TV, but I heard a person say that influence is, if somebody comes to you and asks you for a job, you say, oh, well, you know, I know somebody who can hire you. You know, that's influence. But power is when somebody comes to you and say, hey, you know, I need a job. And then you say, well, hey, I'll employ you. So I think overall, our condition here in the United States of America is one of, we have influence, indeed, but we don't really have power. We have not joined the ranks of all the other free peoples of the world who are determining their destiny. You know, even little countries like, you know, that in the Caribbean are determining their own destiny. Jamaica, you know, Haiti, Barbados, Antigua, you know, they're determining their own destiny, but yet, and we're all the same people, by the way, but we here in the United States, you know, haven't gotten to that place yet. And so I don't see us going up against the United States government, taking it over so that we can, you know, have state power. So I think for me, it's just best for me to issue the United States a bill of divorcement and for us to go our separate ways, you know, whether it be to Liberia. You know, they set up Liberia for, you know, former slaves to go back to Africa if they so desired. Right. And believe it or not, you know, Africa is a very different place than it was perhaps even, you know, 40, 50 years ago. If it's comfort, the comforts of the United States that we are looking for, well, you can look at countries like South Africa and see, you know, how wealthy it is. You know, look at the housing. It's the same type of houses that you'll see here in the United States, the same type of freeways and the same type of cities and so on and so forth. You know, so for me, I think there's a lot of possibilities, and a lot of other people are looking at Africa and are taking advantage of the many opportunities that are there. A lot of Chinese are in Africa buying up land and oceanfront land and stuff like that. But what are we doing here in the United States as African Americans? You know, of anybody that should be going back buying land, it should be us. You know, that's where we're from. You know, do you want to stay here and endure the type of insult? You know, the type of insults when a Colin Kaepernick, you know, kneels and then the president of the United States calls him an SOB and calls for him to be fired. Do you want to stay here and endure that type of insult from the president in 2020? Or do you want to go to a place like Ghana that is saying, come back home. Come back home and invest in your own country, in your own land. Come back home. We welcome you. So if the United States were a woman, I would say this has been a bad relationship from the start. You know, we just simply don't see eye to eye. And we've been trying to make it work. We've been patient. I've been patient with you, you know, but now I'm fed up, tired. I'm tired. It is time for us to go our separate ways.
Okay. Is there anything that we haven't covered about you, about your life, that challenges any of the stereotypes of Black men?
And when you say stereotypes of Black men, what are some of the stereotypes you're referring to?
So there's the stereotype that Black men are all criminals. There's the stereotype that Black men are angry. There's the stereotype that Black men, they can't make it because they just haven't gotten enough education to make it. There are so many different stereotypes. Any of those or any others?
I see myself as a person who has high moral standards, you know, who wakes up every day and tries to do the best that I can, you know, in terms of being a good husband, you know, a good faithful husband, in terms of being a good person in the society in which I live. You know, if I see a person in need, irrespective of race doesn't matter. If I see a person in need, you know, I'll try to help that person. You know, that's just the ethics that I have as a Christian. You know, if a person sees me, a white person or a person of any other race, you know, sees me, they don't have to, you know, hold on to their purse, you know, extra tight, and, you know, I'm not going to rob them. And what other stereotypes are?
Like some people, like one of my guests, he plays the cello. So it's something something about you that.
One thing I do like and have an interest in is studying astronomy. You know, I don't know if you can see, I have a telescope back here, but I've had a telescope for a long time. And, you know, one thing that I enjoy is looking at the heavenly bodies, looking at Mars, looking at the moon, and, you know, looking at Orion's belt, and, you know, just things of that nature, and looking at the cycles and how the planets or the heavenly bodies move. And I try to find meaning. For example, there's a solar eclipse that's visible from East Africa taking place. So I like to, you know, pay attention to those kind of things and look for meaning, how they might be influencing certain realities here on Earth. And so that's one thing that might challenge stereotypes, the fact that I'm curious about the universe and how just the different motions in the universe affect us here on Earth. Yeah. So that might challenge some stereotypes.
Yeah. Thank you. That's exactly what I'm talking about. Is there anything that you, for yourself, have gotten out of participating in this interview?
Yes, I would say that it allowed me to reflect about my life from childhood to the present. It's bringing back fond memories, you know, like the story of me arriving in Jamaica for the first time, and just, you know, reflecting on that. As you're bringing them out, I'm like, wow, you know, that did happen to me. You know, I did experience that. And these are great stories to share. And so I'm glad that, you know, you were conducting the interview to kind of document it, but also something that I could probably write down in a journal or in another book. And so I'm kind of glad and grateful that this experience is occurring, because it's bringing out a lot of things that I hadn't really considered. Like, for example, what is my favorite song? I've been listening to a lot of different songs, but hadn't necessarily asked myself, okay, which one is your favorite song? Mm-hmm. And in thinking about it, it's like, oh, okay, well, this is the one, and for this reason.
Yeah.
These are the reasons.
It sounds like these questions and this conversation is opening a doorway to kind of a life review and noticing and getting to know yourself from an observer perspective.
Right. I would agree with that. Yes. Yeah. And it's helping me to see where I am in my growth and development, as a human being, and what work I still need to do or accomplish, and how to go about accomplishing those goals. It's really making me reflect on some of those kinds of things.
I thank you for taking the time to introduce yourself and share your life, your stories, your knowledge with the listeners of 365 Brothers. It's really a privilege to know you, Iweze, because the depth of your curiosity, the commitment to research and investigation, and your purpose to share information that empowers our people is tremendous. It contributes something powerful to our ongoing existence in America. So thank you for that.
Well, thank you for giving me the opportunity to share. And I really appreciate you, giving me this time to voice my thoughts and opinions. And I know you're doing great work. You're always up to something positive, me knowing you over the years. And so here you are with this blog, and I'm like, wow, there she is at it again. Always up to something good and positive. With your as an author yourself, and the list just, as an educator, the list just goes on and on and on. You're doing good work. And so I commend you for the work that you yourself are doing.
Thank you, Iweze. I appreciate that.
Thank you for listening. As you can hear, you do not want to miss any of these brothers. Make sure you subscribe. You can find more at our website, 365brothers.com, 365brothers.com. This is Robin Shine. To listen is to love.